Hello Internet and Happy New Year. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I've put together a system using old parts in the Fantex XT Pro. But here's the twist. Instead of Windows, we're installing Bazzite. So this is going to be me diving into Linux as a total newbie. The parts we're using today are a little bit older, but they're still more than capable in 2026. The CPU is an Intel i7-4790S. It's the 65-watt version of the 4790K, the top boy for the 4th gen Intel CPUs. The motherboard is an MSI Z97 Tomahawk, paired with 32 gigs of DDR3 RAM. For storage we're using a 1TB Crucial P5 Plus, and the GPU is an EVGA GTX 1070, released in 2016, and finally the PSU is an EVGA 750-watt unit. We've got a bit of EVGA theme going on. Installing Bazzite on a PC is a straightforward process. To do so, first visit the official Bazzite website and download the appropriate ISO. In the drop-down box, please select a desktop PC, and then we want to choose the NVIDIA GTX 10 series GPUs. And finally I'm going to pick the KDE environment. Once the ISO file is finished downloading, you'll need to create a bootable USB stick. To do this, we'll use a tool called Rufus. I'll leave the links in the description to all the tools you need. Right, once Rufus is downloaded, just plug a USB drive into your computer and then open Rufus. Select the Bazzite ISO you downloaded and then use Rufus to write it to the USB drive. Once that's done, safely eject your USB drive and you're ready to move on to the next step. Then you want to insert the USB drive into the PC you're installing Bazzite on and power it on. Access the system's boot menu or BIOS settings and select the USB drive as the boot device. The installer will then launch, allowing you to follow the on-screen instructions to complete the installation of Bazzite. Linux is so easy to install on any PC these days. You just have to pick the right ISO from the website for your hardware. Now that we're all set up, it's time for some benchmarking. And don't forget, today is not all about performance. It's just to see if gaming is actually possible using Linux Bazzite. The first game is Borderlands 3 running at 1080p on medium settings, with motion blur turned off and FXAA enabled. Bazzite is designed to feel more like a gaming console than a traditional PC operating system. Think SteamOS style simplicity, you can jump straight into your games and stay immersed. This approach really shines on handheld devices, where the interface, sleep and resume behaviour feel much more natural and seamless than on Windows. On the downside, the NVIDIA GPU support is still a bit rough around the edges. This is especially noticeable with high-end or older cards. When it comes to performance, Bazzite is strong, especially with Unreal Engine 4 games. Frame time stays smooth and with very few dips. For example, in Borderlands 3, Bazzite hits an average of 86 FPS, with 1% lows at 58 FPS and 0.1% lows at 24 FPS. The online marketplace for CD keys and software. G2A.com, where you can find discounts on all the keys you need. Next is Cyberpunk 2077, at 1080p on medium graphics settings with both motion blur and depth of field turned off, and AMD FSR 3 is set to balanced. Bazzite is open source. It runs with far fewer background services, which means more system resources are available for gaming. This can be especially beneficial for titles using modern graphics APIs like Vulkan. But with that said, performance isn't always consistent. User experiences vary quite a lot. Some see excellent results, especially on AMD systems, while others report stuttering or poor performance in games that would otherwise run perfectly fine on Windows. Cyberpunk 2077 delivers a 46 FPS average, while the 1% and 0.1% lows fall down to 27 FPS and 22 FPS respectively. Next up, we've got Fallout 4 at 1080p and on the high settings. Motion blur is off, depth of field is set to bokeh, the HD textures are enabled, and we're using FXAA for anti-aliasing. With Bazzite, many Steam titles run great right out the box, especially games already optimised for Steam Deck or Linux. and thanks to Proton and native Vulkan support, compatibility and performance are solid for a large portion of the Steam library. But the biggest downside when gaming on Bazzite is its online multiplayer experience. Many popular competitive games like Valorant or Fortnite rely on anti-cheat systems that simply won't work on Linux. In those cases, the games won't launch at all. In Fallout 4 we're seeing an average of 58 FPS, with both the 1% and 0.1% lows at 30 FPS. Next up is Red Dead Redemption at 1080p on high settings. Motion blur is off, and we've got AMD FSR3 set to balanced. On some devices like the ROG Ally X, benchmark testing shows higher or more stable frame rates compared to Windows in several AAA games. Linux power management and overall system efficiency can also contribute to smoother gameplay in the right scenarios. I'm actually really enjoying my experience with Bazzite, but next time I want to install it on a newer setup, so expect an all Intel build very soon. Make sure to like and subscribe because you definitely do not want to miss that one. Back to the performance. In Red Dead Redemption the average comes in at 89 FPS with a 1% low of 58 FPS and a 0.1% low of 39 FPS. Finally we've got The Witcher 3 at 1080p on high settings. Motion blur and depth of field are off and AMD FSR2 is set to performance mode. The Witcher 3 averages 73 FPS with a 1% low of 38 FPS and a 0.1% low of 26 FPS. Right, so my first impressions of Bazzite, I'm pretty impressed. For a Linux-based operating system, it's a surprisingly decent alternative to Windows, especially if you're into single-player games or just want a more efficient system. What really blew me away was how well it ran on old hardware. I loved how easy it was to get up and running with Steam and Proton. It was almost plug and play, without all the extra Windows bloat that comes along with it. With that said, Nvidia's support and multiplayer anti-cheat still have their limitations. But for the games it does support, performance and stability are bang on. Now I'm not saying Bazzite is ready to replace Windows just yet, but for gamers who care about control, openness and efficiency, it's no longer just an experiment. It's something definitely worth trying. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this look at Linux Bazzite, then hit that like button and subscribe for more tech fun. And I'll see you in the next one.